Welcome back to the 7th episode of Messiah, an Introduction to a Complicated Jewish Topic. This is Rabbi Juan Marcos Bejarano Gutierrez. For those of you who have not joined us previously, this is a series of videos that will review, or that is reviewing, the concept of Messiah, Mashiach, in the Tanakh, in the Hebrew Bible, but will eventually look at the concept as it appears in the literature of the Second Temple period. So eventually we'll look at the scrolls at Qumran, we'll look at Philo, we'll look at the pseudepigrapha, the apocrypha, early rabbinic literature. It's a fascinating and complicated topic, and what we've done, or what I'm trying to do, is adopt an academic approach. So everything is legitimately on the table as long as it's related to the topic in question. So let's go ahead and start. We'll go ahead and go to the next slide. For those of you who haven't seen the previous episodes, feel free to look at episode 1, which gives an overview of the philosophy that we're adopting, talks about my educational background, and has an important quote that sort of lays out what we're trying to achieve as far as our outlook and approach. What I do in every episode is I have a quote and a recommended title. And what I'll do is I'm going to skip down to the recommended title first. The book is Messiah, The Messiah, Developments in Early Judaism and Christianity, and it's by Professor James H. Charlesworth. He was the editor. It's actually a collection of essays by Jewish and Christian scholars on the topic of Messiah in the framework of the Second Temple period. So if you like that, this is an excellent title. Now let's jump back to the quote that I wanted to focus on. And this is actually by J.J. Roberts, who's a professor emeritus at Princeton Theological Seminary, and his chapter was included in the recommended title, The Messiah, Developments in Early Judaism and Christianity. And what he says is, I think, very important to keep note of. By far, the majority of biblical passages given a messianic interpretation by later Jewish and Christian sources do not contain the word Mashiach. So what we have done to this point is we have looked at the 39 or 40 passages in the Tanakh, in the Hebrew Bible, or if you're coming from a Christian background, from the Old Testament, that specifically mention the word Mashiach, an anointed one. We've looked at all the variations of it grammatically, and we went through them one by one. We highlighted the word as it appeared, and we looked at the English translation, and we just did that. We're looking at this in a step-by-step process. We're not so concerned with commentary or interpretations, whether they be rabbinic or other sources. Right now, we just want to look at the texts themselves. Now, since we finished up the last couple of references in the book of Daniel, now what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to start looking at passages in the Tanakh that have been understood as referring to some type of future redemption. Again, this is sort of just an initial pass. It's usually related to some type of king that comes along and restores kingship to Israel. And we're going to look at one of the texts today. And again, we're just trying to stick here with the basic Hebrew text, and then we'll look at the English, and then we'll do this on a step-by-step process. So just as a review, for those of you who haven't joined us previously, what we did in the previous 6 videos is we looked at every passage in the Tanakh that described an anointed one, or a Mashiach. And what we learned was that there were 4 categories of offices, or 4 types of individuals that were referred to as anointed ones. It was the priest, the Kohanim, or specifically sometimes the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. There was one instance where a Navi was referred to as an anointed one, or he was being anointed. And the majority of the passages that we looked at were specifically with the idea of the king, King Saul, King David, etc., being anointed as king of Israel, and later of the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. And then we also found that there was one instance where Cyrus the Great, Koresh, a non-Jew, is referred to as an anointed one. And then finally, in the last episode, we looked at the book of Daniel that referred to a Mashiach Nagid, an anointed prince. So what we're going to do now is we're going to continue our quest to look at all of the different passages in the Tanakh that refer to some type of future redemption, even though it doesn't specifically mention the word Mashiach. Now, you might ask, well, how am I coming up with these passages? Well, there's quite a few books out there. I referred to one of them before, the Messiah text by Raphael Patai. There's another book, I think I have one that's titled The Book of Redemption. I have to look at it, but it's a source text of different passages that have been looked at as referring to future redemption. So again, we're just going to look at the text itself. And this is from the book of Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu Hanavi, from chapter 23, verses 5 through 8. So we'll start here. We have Hinei Yamim Ba'im Nu'um Adonai V'haki Moti LeDavid Semach Tzadik Umalach Melech V'Hiskil Ve'asa Mishpat Utztaka Ba'aretz. And then we have the next verse. Beyamav Tivasha Yehuda Ve'Yisrael Yishkon Labetach Vazeh Shemo Asher yik'r'o Adonai Tzidkenu Lachen Hinei Yamim Ba'im Num Adonai Velo Yomru Od Chai Adonai Asher He'ela Et Bnei Yisrael Me'eretz Mitzrayim Ki im Chai Adonai Asher He'ela Ve'asher Hevi Et Zera Bet Yisrael Me'eretz Safona Umikol Haratzot Asher Hi Dachtim Sham Yashvu Al Ha'ad Ad Matam. And we'll go ahead and go to the translation here. Behold, the days come, so there's some time in the future, says the Lord, that I will raise unto David a righteous shoot, and he shall reign as king and prosper, and shall execute justice and righteousness in the land. In his days Judah shall be saved, and Israel shall dwell safely. And this is his name whereby he shall be called. The Lord is our righteousness. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that they shall no more say, as the Lord liveth, that brought us up from the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt, but as the Lord liveth, that brought up and led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country, and from all the countries whither I have driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land. So the context of the book of Jeremiah, of course, is the destruction of the temple during the Babylonian period. And there's a possibility here, I think, that we could have a reference to Zedekiah, if I remember correctly, the last king of Judah. This is after, of course, the division of the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. But what we have here is an understanding that there is this kind of future king that will reestablish, the commonwealth of Israel. It doesn't specifically mention when. It simply relates the future event to the Yetziat Mitzrayim, the Exodus from Egypt, and how this future event, this future restoration, will be as great as the Exodus from Egypt. So the fundamental event that takes place in the identity of the Jewish people is the Exodus from Egypt and the encounter at Sinai. In this case, the devastation that has been brought about by the destruction of the northern kingdom and the conquest of the southern kingdom is compared in the process of its restoration to events from the past. So again, we don't have a specific reference to an anointed one, but it's clear that there's a reference to a king. So in that sense, we could say that the king, as we've seen in the past, is a Mashiach, an anointed one. And it's sometime in the future where there's a restoration of the commonwealth at some point. So we're just going to deal with that particular passage this time. And what we'll do in the subsequent passage, or the subsequent episodes, I should say, is we'll look at another text. We'll look at the Hebrew, we'll look at the English, and we'll just try to provide some basic context for it. So again, if you're interested, you're more than welcome to visit my website. It's not directly related to this, but it's cryptojewesheducation.com. My focus on that website is Sephardic history and specifically the crypto-Jewish experience. A lot of articles and links and so forth if you're interested in that. And we'll see you next time on episode 8.